What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Patriot Backtalk. I'm your host, Kyle Johnson. Okay, by now, unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard the incredible news. The Supreme Court has overturned the 1973 decision of Roe v. Wade, and in doing so has sent the power to decide abortion legality back to the states because the ruling determined that the Constitution doesn't protect a woman's right to kill her child. Now, there's a lot to unpack in this episode about what is coming next for us locally here in Wisconsin, as well as nationwide when it comes to when and where abortions will be legal. So let's dive right in. June 24th, 2022 is a day that I, and I'm sure millions of others, never thought we'd see in our lifetime. For 50 years, this country had been the epicenter of a genocide, the likes of which has never been seen before. The number of babies that were killed from 1973 to 2022 is 4 times higher than the total deaths of the Holocaust. 63 million lives ended by so-called doctors that were protected by federal law, but no longer. From last Friday going forward, abortions performed in the United States will not be protected by federal law, but instead, states will have to decide if they want to allow abortions for themselves. And this is completely constitutional. Abortion isn't mentioned in the Constitution, and therefore is to be decided by the states. Justice Samuel Alito wrote the final opinion of the court's decision. And I want to read a few of the statements just so we can get the Supreme Court's reasoning straight from the horse's mouth. Alito wrote, "Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. Its reasoning was exceptionally weak, and its decision has had damaging consequences. And far from bringing about a national settlement of the abortion issue, Roe and Casey have inflamed debate and deepened division. It's time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives." He goes on to say, "Roe found that the Constitution implicitly conferred a right to obtain an abortion, but it failed to ground its decision in text, history, or precedent. It relied on an erroneous historical narrative. It devoted great attention to and presumably relied on matters that have no bearing on the meaning of the Constitution. It disregarded the fundamental difference between the precedents on which it relied. And the question before the court, it concocted an elaborate set of rules with different restrictions for each trimester of pregnancy. But it did not explain how this veritable code could be teased out of anything in the Constitution." And I talked about this a few weeks back in a prior episode. Roe v. Wade was shoved through on the premise that the Constitution defended that so-called right. It does not. And the overturning of Roe v. Wade, as Alito references here, does not make abortions illegal nationwide. It only returns the power to the states to decide. He wraps up the opinion by saying, "We do not pretend to know how our political system or society will respond to today's decision overruling Roe and Casey. And even if we could foresee what will happen, we have no authority to let that knowledge influence our decision. We can only do our job." Isn't that refreshing to hear from a political figure? I wish more people in Washington had that mindset, which is to interpret the law, apply long-standing principles of stare decisis, and decide this case accordingly. We therefore hold that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Roe and Casey must be overruled, and the authority to regulate abortion must be returned to the people and their elected representatives. And finally, the words so many have longed to hear for 5 decades. Abortion presents a profound moral question. The Constitution does not prohibit the citizens of each state from regulating or prohibiting abortion. Roe and Casey arrogated that authority. We now overrule those decisions and return the authority to the people and their elected representatives. Roe v. Wade is dead, gone, killed, eliminated. And that is something that we should praise God for. And even if our country doesn't make this a national holiday, we should celebrate this day every year and never let it be forgotten. Now, part of the reason this decision is so exciting is because it was slightly unexpected. We knew there was a chance, and President Trump did the setup work for this years ago by appointing justices that he knew would put in the work and that he believed would make this decision. Trump has been loudly and proudly pro-life, and his decisions on justice have given conservatives, Christians, and U.S. babies a major victory. But this decision has been bravely made in an extremely hostile society right now. Libs and Dems and all forms of left-leaning nutcases aren't going to quietly accept this. In fact, the more likely situation is that this is going to be used as kindling for a national uprising and violence. Remember, Dems know that November is not going to be good for them if there is a fair and honest election. The polls don't support it. If life is semi-normal and election processes are legal, there will be a red wave, and Republicans will take back the House, Senate, and slews of local and state positions. The problem is, the Dems have shown their true colors. They got a majority in Washington and destroyed the country almost immediately. People, even Democratic supporters, won't support the same officials that caused them to lose money, created supply chain issues, and are embarrassing us on a world stage. There are tons of examples, even locally here in central Wisconsin, where you hear people call into radio shows and are switching to vote Republican because of the damage that the Dems caused. And we're even seeing some Democratic politicians, Joe Manchin being the most public, changing their minds on leftist ideology. A fair election will not result in a Democratic majority, period. So what does the left do? They don't have a track record of playing fair and honest, so they need chaos. You see, chaos is the left's bread and butter. Through chaos, they can implement emergency legislation, quote unquote, that they claim is necessary. They can trick people to obeying their every whim if they use the crooked media to drive lies over and over and over until people start to believe them. A phrase credited to Nazi Joseph Goebbels rings true. Repeat a lie often enough, and it becomes the truth. We saw this on full display in the COVID mayhem. 2 weeks of staying at home to flatten the curve. Masks are optional. Vaccines are optional. Well, now masks are recommended, and vaccines are strongly recommended. Get your vaccine and you can stop wearing the mask. Get your vax and wear your mask. Vaccines are required for certain jobs. Masks are required in certain areas. Booster vaccines are recommended. Booster vaccines are required in certain lines of work. And on and on and on. These lies were spread repeatedly every time you opened your phone or watched a YouTube video with ads. And it had a shockwave effect by the time the election rolled around, to the point that they used that chaos to steal the election. And this abortion decision will most likely be utilized some way by the left again. Now, I don't personally believe that it will be the only thing they use for this coming election. The left has had other plans that only time will reveal. But make no mistake, this will be used negatively against conservatives, Christians, churches, pregnancy resource centers, anyone who is outwardly pro-life. And we've actually seen this already. There is a radical terrorist group in America called Jane's Revenge. And this group gets to publicly post threats online, and with no committee being formed in the Senate to investigate them. Interesting, isn't it? They have taken responsibility for many firebombings of pregnancy centers and threats against public officials. Again, if this was a right-wing group, they'd all be hunted down and imprisoned. But lefties love this stuff when it's on their side. Here's a taste of what Jane's Revenge is promising in the coming weeks, and this was posted a day after the Roe v. Wade overturning. We offered an honorable way out, and there they're referring to a 30-day grace period that they offered lawmakers to give up on overturning Roe or else. You could have walked away. Now the leash is off, and we will make it as hard as possible for your campaign of oppression to continue. We have demonstrated in the past month how easy and fun it is to attack. We are versatile, and we answer to no one but ourselves. We promise to take increasingly drastic measures against oppressive infrastructures. Rest assured that we will. And those measures may not come in the form of something so easily cleaned up as fire and graffiti. Sometimes you will see what we do and you will know that it is us. Sometimes you will think you are merely unlucky because you cannot see the ways which we interfere in your affairs. But your pointless attempts to control others and make life more difficult will not be met passively. Eventually, your insurance companies and your financial backers will realize that you're a bad investment. From here forward, any anti-choice group who closes their doors and stops operating will no longer be a target. But until you do, it's open season. And we know where your operations are. The infrastructure of the enslavers will not survive. We will never stop, back down, slow down, or retreat. We didn't want this, but it is upon us, and so we must deal with it proportionally. We exist in confluence and solidarity with all others in the struggle for complete liberation. Through attacking, we find joy, courage, and strip the veneer of impenetrability held by these violent institutions. And for the allies of ours who doubt the authenticity of our communiques and actions, there is a way you can get irrefutable proof that these actions are real. Go do one of your own. You are already one of us. Everyone with the urge to paint, to burn, to cut, to jam. Now is the time. Go forth and manifest the things you wish to see. Stay safe and practice your cursive. Is that not scary or what? Now, the cursive reference is in relation to the spray paint messages they've left on pro-life buildings that say, if abortions aren't safe, then neither are you, and other threatening messages. Again, this doesn't get near the coverage that it should. If right-wing groups did this, it would be an all-out assault, and the nation would explode as we hunt down these terrorists. But instead, we hear crickets from the Justice Department and the media. Now, Libs, like the members of the Jane's Revenge, are historically cowardly and talk big with no real action to back it up. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But people that believe these things are out there, and there is no doubt groups that will join together to attack people that believe in pro-life values. Don't roll your eyes and pretend that it won't happen. It's happened before, and libs are even crazier now. So let's move into where we go from here. And there will be stories cropping up about which states do or don't allow abortions now, who's going to outlaw them, who's going to keep laws in place, but all of it really won't be settled until after the November elections. Since, finally, the power is in the states' hands, the November elections will be extremely telling of where abortions will be legalized or outlawed. Currently, there are states like Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, South Dakota, and Alabama, and they've all officially outlawed abortion already, praise God. And there is word that about half of the 50 states will have major restrictions or complete elimination of abortion within the next 30 days. And this includes Wisconsin too, but time will tell on that. At some point, every state will have to decide and choose where they will stand on this and other major issues like gun control. And this is where we get to see who will be strong and wise and who will be foolish and cowardly. It may even require us to look at our home states and make hard choices. If your tax dollars are going to support abortion, and at any second a SWAT team could bust through your door and seize your guns with no warrant or reason, and yes, that's a real possibility with red flag laws, we may need to look at relocating to places that are like-minded and don't support evil like this. We'll now have that choice to make, whereas for the last 50 years we did not. Ben Shapiro said it well. He said this decision puts the pressure back on us as American citizens. We can no longer just blame our lack of action on the Supreme Court. They've done their job, and it's time for us to do ours. As always, we need to put the pressure on our elected officials, but it puts great importance on who we elect this November as well. It's time to put petty arguments aside. As conservatives and Republicans, we need to rally around pro-life candidates with the best chance of winning against the Dems. Which means, even if your first choice doesn't win the Republican primary, you need to look at the winner. And if they are pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-cop, put your ego aside and rally together for the greater good. The frontrunner may not be your favorite personality or public speaker, but if they hold fast to these essential beliefs, have humility, and make the choice for the greater good. We need to band together. Now is not the time for petty things to drive us to vote for 4 different candidates while the Dems all vote for the same person. This is what the left wants. It makes it easier to cheat. Vote together. Put pressure on your representatives to make the right choice, and have each other's backs. This nation is a time bomb. Check in on your friends and family who could be in the path of evil, and offer assistance any way you can. And finally, regardless of which states allow or don't allow abortion, there will be a lot of women who feel lost in this. Women who were planning on having an abortion, but now cannot, praise God. But let's be there for these ladies. Show them Christ's love. Show them that there is another way, a way that doesn't murder their child, but instead reveals to them that they have people around them who will support them and help them every step of the way, no matter what. All right, I'm wrapping this one up. And this is an exciting time, and we as Christians and conservatives should be openly celebrating this decision because it's a massive step towards saving lives and has instantly shut down a large number of these baby death clinics. And we should be pumped up and tell everyone who will listen, be proud of our Supreme Court's decision, and then turn that excitement into motivation to take the next steps. Don't stop here. There's more we can do to help save lives and assist new mothers. The easiest way is to get in touch with your local pregnancy resource centers and just ask what they need. Volunteers, clothes, even just money, to help these places that are about to get very busy. One local one that my wife and I have supported is the Hannah Center, and there are others too, like First Choice Pregnancy Center. And if you want info, I'll post it on the Patriot Backtalk Facebook page. Or as always, you can reach out with any other questions, and I'll do my best to respond as quickly as I can. Be excited, folks, and remember, never back down or be ashamed of your patriotism. God bless y'all, and we'll talk soon.